What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Good Wolf Project. I'm your host, Jerry Scarlato, and today's conversation is with Dr. G. Rex Kruhley. Dr. G is a healer, a chiropractor, and an expert in consciousness, which is what we get into a lot today. This is something that I've been very curious about after reading a book, excuse me, which we talk about a little bit in the conversation itself. But basically, this conversation helps us understand how we can get into our own head so that we can get out of our own head and start to understand ourselves better, start to see the world differently, start to understand the world differently, and start to make the outer world change by changing our inner world. Because as Dr. G says numerous times in this conversation, your outer world is just a reflection of your inner world. So, pen and paper is going to definitely be necessary for this one. Enjoy this conversation with Dr. G. Rex Kruhley. Dr. G, great to have you on the show. We already did a little bit of back talk about everything, but what I am curious about, I'm always kind of curious with new guests, is where your curiosity for what you do came from. How did you start with your journey with with your healing that you do now? How you do it, just even getting into understanding consciousness, helping people heal the way that you help them. What got you into that?
I was born and I came into this life specifically for it. So when I was just a little tiny child, by the time I was 3, I already had the visions and the purpose and the whole thing, the whole mission. And then it took quite a number of bends for me because to get to where I am now, because there's a lot of the things I had to learn and a lot of things I had to experience so that I have the empathy for people. And then I met uh, throughout my life, I study as apprenticeships under great masters. That's how I got my empowerments, and I learn wisdoms from living beings, not from books or school. I have the degrees in that from school. I got that stuff later. To become a distance quantum healer that I am now, I had no clue about that. I After I left being a professional sensei in the year 2000 and decided to become a doctor, I was already in my late 40s or something like that, and I went off and got the degree. So I'm trained in there's like 250 or more types of chiropractic. My specialty is consciousness. So I'm not like a regular chiropractor that does structural work. I do work in the higher areas of the brain and mind and all of that. My entire life was like that. Always the mind, spirit, uh, mystical side of things. Well, anyway, uh, after I graduated, I was married. I graduated in Texas. We moved to Georgia, and I didn't know that that part of the world they don't want uh, consciousness work. They want structural work.
From a
I couldn't make
chiropractor.
yeah. I couldn't make a dime, and the marriage was horrible. Everything was bad, and I was very angry. And then one day, and so I was always learning. I've learned many crafts and all kinds of things. But anyway, one day I get a phone call. I was in my like altar, you could call like an altar room where I worship the divine. And phone rings, and it's a couple in New York. I'm in Georgia. How they found me, I don't know, because I had no advertising or anything. And I had closed both of my my chiropractic offices. I had nothing. My wife was supporting everything. She's a physical therapist. And this couple calls me up. The lady is dying of stage 4 metastasized cancer, and the husband was a great big man. He had 2 years. He had developed MS 2 years into it, and I said to him, "Folks, I don't know how you found me, but I'm in Georgia and you're in New York. How am I supposed to help you? I can't help you." And I heard the divine, like I can hear you now. It said, "No, no, you can treat them from here." Now I already was a Reiki master. I have different abilities for projecting energy. It's just that you project the energy by touching the person. I had never tried to project anything, consciousness or frequencies
By distance.
across the time. Well, anyway, I took on the case, and I was able to stop the MS right away. The lady was seeing me for the cancer, but it was metastasized all through her. Her oncologist told her that my stuff was garbage, and she died within. She stopped. She passed away within 1 month. But that's how the distance healing began. And quite frankly, when I first started it, I while I was doing it, I would think, is this real? Like, am I actually, is something? But what happens is every single person I would work on, they just, they'd call me up and they're better, this change, that, everything. And that was a long time ago now. I have about a 98, 99% success rate with anything. Uh, and the divine, because of my process that I'm part of, my work now compared to then, my work is advancing many times like weekly. So I do just about everything and anything now. And the reason I'm able to do that is not because of me. Please don't misunderstand. Nothing special about me. I'm a channel. And what's happened is the divine I'm channeling now is enormously powerful. And my bond is very strong and getting stronger. And that allows me, when I meet a client, I have my frequencies and my science, but the divine operates through me and takes care of it. That's how this works. I don't want you to think that I have a power. That's called a CD, and I do not have CDs. I do not have.
So I'm assuming to some degree that what we're going to end up talking about is levels of consciousness, and I'm gonna assume that what you're saying has something to do with levels of consciousness, as far as
Yeah.
you being able to have more and more abilities comes from your ability to have more and more consciousness.
That's part of it, yes, and the other part of it is how you bond. You have to make a bond with your divine. Divine is always there, but in the West, that no one ever taught us how to bond with the divine. I'm not
So,
like regular Western people.
that's I will tell you that's a good thing. The average Westerner, well, you know what kind of demographic they fit into. That's a lot of people listening to this. I'm not putting anybody down, but when I look at what the average person lives and how the average person is, I don't I don't try to move toward that. I'll just say that much.
Okay, that's a good way to say
So,
it.
so you said in the beginning of that you went through some trials and tribulations so that you could have empathy for human beings. Can you share a particular one that you remember that helped increase your awareness of what you needed to do or how you could have more empathy for people?
Sure. I broke my back in half when I was 27 in a weight training. I was weight training at the University of Windsor, and I was as strong as steel. I was a world-class martial artist, and but I was also full of rage, absolute rage. And I was going to move that year to Japan to continue my training in Tokyo, and that wasn't written for me. If I'd have gone there with all the anger I was in, I would have become a very different man, and I'd never be the healer I am now. So my back snapped in half at L5, and that took me 3 years. I was able to seal the back and the bone structure in 12 weeks with meditation, no operation. But but then I had to rebuild my whole body um, from all of the there's so many things that happen, right? So I learned about healing, slowed me down. So I had to learn a lot of stuff about patience. And, there was a whole um, complex of things that go on when you're crippled like that. And during the process, see, I'm always with these great master doctors. So at that time, I was with the founder of applied kinesiology, Dr. George Goodhart Jr. So those guys that's why I was able to get fixed up. And then Dr. Goodhart took me under his wing and showed me Jose Silva's mind control method. I was introduced to so what was going on is, one, I'm going through the suffering and the debilitation, all of my musculature completely atrophied. I looked like a salamander. I had to rebuild all that. So I learned about biomechanics. I learned from the doctors there, including Dr. Lou Bovin and Alan Zadkin, who were directly under Dr. Goodhart at the office there. And so I'm studying and learning, studying, learning, studying, learning. And that all went into who I am now. And when I was, the rage continued for decades. So that developed breast cancer in my chest on the right side. And they cut that out of me, and right in the office, and a really great surgeon that was like a family friend. He just leaned me over the table, gave me a local injection, cut this thing out of my chest, and it had always been there since I was a little boy. It was like a little ball, and right beside the right nipple. But when I in 2014 started to get itchy,
Mm.
and the doctor is Dr. Clay Kofer, and he wanted to look at it, so he just cut it right out of me on the desk, and it was cancer. It was a slow growing estrogen cancer. So I've already had studied for like 20 or 30 years epigenetics, and then I'm seeing epigenetics with the rage, taking a little fatty pocket that had been there all my life and turned it into a slow growing cancer. And that was part of the healing process for me to remove once and for all the anger, because if I don't heal that, it'll kill me. So, and then I've had the knee operations and all that, and each time I was always introduced to these great, great, great master doctors. Like I don't even want to call them a doctor. They're geniuses, and they're healers. They're peerless. And I'd be with them, and as they're healing me and working on me, I would at the same time I study from them, and I'm learning and absorbing, learning, absorbing, learning, absorbing. And of course, I was a professional sensei for a long time, and I trained everybody from NASA scientists down to you know stay-at-home moms, Alcoholics Anonymous, police, military, SWAT, special ops, everything. And all the time I'm learning about people, life, psychology. Meanwhile, I have my spiritual world, and I'm advancing along those lines. And all this stuff goes together to make me who I am now. And then when I developed the actual bond, I got introduced to Shyama Bhagavan, I think at the end of 2012. Once I started to make that bond alive, and I learned how, that has brought me up to where I am at this time. And that process is sailing, because my all my work is dedicated. I'm like, in one of my titles, we call me a sevak. Sevak means service. Samurai also, the word samurai is from the root word saburo, which means to serve. That's what a real samurai is. Samurai aren't like in the movies.
Right.
They're not some big tough guy that runs around. No, no. They're servant. I was an uchideshi for 8 years. Uchideshi means I serve the headmaster.
Mm. So it sounds like you had a kind of the perfect storm. Perfect in what sense? You had to go through all these trials and tribulations, of course, but at the same time, you basically were able to become the apprentice of all of these healers, doctors, and at the same time, you were also able to ingrain that wisdom, if you will, by teaching others, because you don't
Yep,
really understand something until you actually present it to somebody else, right?
yep.
I believe the best way to actually learn is to actually teach something to somebody else. So you were able to learn and then apply,
That's
learn
exactly right.
and then put it into practice. So it's almost as if your learning curve was probably much faster than somebody who would just go to school, right? You just go to school and all you do is sit there in a classroom and just listen.
Classrooms, all that stuff is data. Data is not wisdom, and data is not life. Living wisdom means you learn heart to heart, mind to mind from another person. We say in Japanese, we say cup to cup. Academics is, as far as I'm concerned, is about 99% worthless. I don't give a hoot in hell about academics. If you take academics plus you learn, you apprentice or you learn from a human being like I did, yeah, then that's good. But if they think that it's just data, you ever seen someone die? You go to somebody when they're dying and check. You think data has anything to do with that?
I can't imagine.
No, there's data is just data. And that's all it is.
I would imagine that's part of the reason why the healthcare system is as ineffective as it is. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of Western medicine that has certainly helped people and extended life, but it seems very data driven and less hands-on healer driven. And so my feeling is I wonder if that's a big reason why maybe they couldn't help more people because
They
they
are
aren't as
allopathic medicine is the highest cause of death in the world. That's because that science is wrong and it's been proven wrong, and they don't care because it makes millions and billions of dollars. Now, structural repair through operations and that's where allopathic medicine are very good. According to my dear friend Dr. Bob Rakowski, their stem cell work is good. All of their pharmaceutical stuff is pure crap, and it kills everybody. And I'll tell you how moronic that is. Over 100 years ago, there was a landmark study done in Russia, And the guy took a vial, a little, glass vial of bacteria. And he took another vial of colloidal silver and he pours it on the bacteria. And of course, all the bacteria are instantly killed. So then he took a vial with the bacteria and he puts it here. And over here, he takes a vial of colloidal silver over here. And then he shined a light through the colloidal silver to hit the other vial. And all the bacteria instantly die. Why? It has nothing to do with the molecular substance of the colloidal silver. It is the signature frequency of the colloidal silver that kills the bacteria. And the light is simply the carrier wave. Now, they've known that all this time. Like if you have a cancer, you can see Dr. Bruce Lipton will verify this. You can take that cancer, they can take the chemo, use a carrier wave, shine that thing in there and take out that cancer, and they doesn't have to kill the lady with the breast cancer because the molecular anatomical molecular substance, which is so horrible, is not necessary to put it into their body. But they don't do that because they lose money. And then I have clients all the time. They are being turned into is a science experiment. And when they die, or when they're completely debilitated or wiped out, all it takes at that hospital, they just put a little died of complication. What I have no. I just the other day, I have a young client that lives on an island way out in the Caribbean somewhere, and they gave him root canals. Well, I got news for you, and every dentist with a brain knows this. Root canal, the nerve is the only line of defense your body has to tell you if you have a cranial infection. The way our skull is designed, if you get a bad infection, it can go everywhere and it'll kill you. And if you don't have the nerve, you will not know that the infection is there. Lots of people die because they had root canals. And they know that. Everybody knows it, but they still do it. Why? Because they want to make money. Well, I don't have any respect for that. Period. End of story. That's that. As far as I'm concerned, every healer, every doctor, it's their number one responsibility to be up on all of this, understand it all, and I don't care about any excuse or anything.
Well, it's supposed to be the Hippocratic Oath, right?
That's right.
Supposed to be the Hippocratic Oath.
Yeah.
But I think that's been lost in translation somewhere along the way.
just slightly.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think we could definitely go down that rabbit hole for a long time because I tend to be in the same way of thinking. That
it'll just make me mad anyway.
Yeah, I can tell you're intense about it, which is okay. I get super worked up about it too. I don't understand as much the medical side of it. I understand a bit of kinesiology and structure and anatomy and so forth. But as far as I don't pretend to be a expert in any of that. I do understand disease and where disease comes from. I do understand chronic disease and where chronic disease comes from. I do understand that behaviors have consequences. And if you have certain behaviors today and you do those repetitively over time, you will have consequences down the road. You do hard things today, exercise, eat well, walk regularly, sleep well. You do those things that is challenging for most of Western society. If you do those, it'll have consequences down the road. You'll be more healthy. Your health span will be longer. Good chance you'll live longer. Right. You eat like junk today. you seek instant gratification. If you do those things, it'll have consequences down the road.
Yep.
Chronic disease, so on and so forth. So that I do know for certain that is a fact. So
Yes, absolutely.
again,
Absolutely.
I think we could both get very worked up about that. So let's switch and talk about consciousness, which is slightly less of an intense topic. So about 2 months ago, I read a book called Power versus Force. I think the author's name was David Hawkins. And
Yeah,
that,
I'm very familiar with that.
yes, it was a very in-depth book. I was only enough prepared for it. I'll just put it that way. I understood it. I wasn't completely there. I'll go back and read it again because ever since then, I've kind of dug a little more, had a few of these conversations to help myself understand more what levels of consciousness and levels of frequency and so on and so forth means. So to you, help help me understand what does consciousness mean to you?
Well, consciousness is everything. There, there's three things, Satchitananda. So you are existence, consciousness, and the qualitative nature of that is bliss. That's all you are. So the only thing there is consciousness. And David Hawkins is interesting. You just read that book because that you could consider me if I have a mastery of anything, that is what I'm a master of. So, and I studied under a great master, Dr. Larry Habersky, for 8 years, and that's how uh, he's the primary person who taught me everything I know from the beginning for consciousness, and also how to master self kinesiology so I can talk to the field. I can talk to the field, the divine, your nervous system, anything, and with surgical precision. So that's the. It takes you years and years to get good enough. And the problem with kinesiology is you have to know how to clear um, entanglement. If you don't know how to clear entanglement, you will get confused readings. And there's so many things that you need to know of what to clear, because you can have some kind of negative energy, entities, just all kinds of things. Yourself, everything's got to be cleared, and then you can get the exact answer properly. So consciousness is there's nothing but consciousness. And uh, have you ever heard of William Tiller?
I have not.
Tiller's another great man. He was tenured with Stanford University, and he wrote a number of other really fine books that would go very well with David Hawkins. And one of the things that way Tiller would say is the more consciousness is embedded in something, it becomes more like a sentient being. Like you can have a rock, it has consciousness, but it only has the consciousness it has versus someone like yourself. You know, the Heart Math Institute.
Yes.
Yes. So Roland McCrady's the head of research there. They made the technology to measure the consciousness in plants and trees, and the trees they have a full thinking process, full consciousness. All of that stuff is coming to the fore now. But the higher the consciousness, the different frequency you have, and the different frequency, everything in the universe, as far as humans go, the only two laws really that you need to know is perception and resonance. So perception gives you your frequency, and your frequency gives you your life, your death, your friends, your money, everything by resonance. Now, what gives you your perception? Your subconscious mind. Subconscious mind rules everything until or unless you're enlightened. So when you see someone like Eckhart Tolle, who's fully enlightened, brain functions completely differently from you and I. So his brain, it does not think at all unless he wants to think. So he's in a state of being. We're in a state of doing. So we have an inner dialogue. The inner dialogue is synonymous with the self. The inner dialogue is giving you your life. Now, the inner dialogue is formed and is connected through the subconscious mind. So that's the first 6 years until the age of 7 at 40 million bits of information per second, 24/7. It's recorded all of that data. And then when the frontal cortex kicks in at the age of 7, it references everything through the database. And that gives you your perceptions. Perception gives you your frequency, and your reality will be, your primary reality will reflect your primary dominant frequencies. So in my case, when I was full of rage, I was a very different man than I am now. It's unbelievable, but that's all been transformed for me. And my inner dialogue is still there, so I'm not enlightened. Almost none of the big boys you see are enlightened. Very, very few. But my inner dialogue has been transformed. So the divine transformed it. All of my inner dialogue, once I could finally see it, first thing is to be able to know that you have an inner dialogue. Second one is to be able to see it. And third higher level is you see it, but you don't judge it. You only observe it. That's all. And then if the inner dialogue is shut off permanently, then you have permanent enlightenment. That's the fundamental commonality for anyone that is given enlightenment, is the inner dialogue will stop. Then the brain only will think very well when you need it. Otherwise, they exist in a state of bliss, inner peace, sacred stillness, sacred silence. When they have that, then the illusion of, where people say you create your world by your thinking, that's only a small stage. While the inner dialogue is there, that is true. When the inner dialogue is gone, that is no longer true and is no longer necessary, because the universe is dependently arising and dependently ceasing at all times. Everything is automatic. And when they're enlightened, they're one with that. And then consciousness continues. There's no end to the consciousness. No, there's no end to that. Make sense?
So, to a degree, like I said, my mind's catching up to all of it. What I gather is that it starts with becoming aware of your inner dialogue.
Yep.
And starting to manually and consciously adjust it. I heard you say don't judge it, which I get, because what you don't want to do is grasp onto it and then make yourself more the way that you are, right? Because if you judge the voices in your head and they're not supportive voices or they're negative or whatever it is, all that's going to do is make you more of the thing. And that's the idea of not judging it, I'm assuming, because you don't want to grasp it and keep pulling it toward you.
Yeah, because here's the main thing to understand. This is the objective of all meditation methods throughout time. Go to let's say you go to a monastery in Tibet, and the Lama will say, "I want you to sit here." He'll give you your posture and so forth and so on, and then he'll say, "I want you to just let thoughts come and go." If you go to India, they'll tell you the same thing. If you go to China, they'll tell you the same thing. You go to doesn't matter where you go. They'll say you sit and you watch the thought come and go. Why? Because there's no such thing as a thought that belongs to you. Never was, never will be. Thoughts belong to is a strata. Mind is very, very, very ancient. And it's a strata. And all thought, everything is there. It's always been there, and it's basically never changed. Your brain is an antenna system, and the thought field comes through here, and it leaves right at the same line at the back of your head where your neck meets your cranium. So the thoughts are just rolling. None of the thoughts belong to you at all, at all. Your consciousness. So you're like an antenna system, and what thoughts come to you is according to your conditioning and your attention and so forth and so on. So if Einstein is sitting there, the thoughts, so that the information that's coming through his brain is in line with the way he's tuned, and the thoughts that are going through an electrician are going through him. The guy that is a fisherman on the Amazon Delta, he gets his thoughts with his tune. Now, if you watch Greg Braden, sometimes he'll talk about the fact that they're doing work to see how you can change and tune your brain to pick up the different information. When you see these guys, it's where they ADHD. There's too much information coming, and it overwhelms them. All that means is their antenna system is picking up so much, and they don't know how to filter it. Most of us, you're picking up 40 million bits per second, but the frontal cortex only registers 40 bits of information per second. Everything else is filtered out. For those people, there's too much coming in, and they don't know how to make the filter. But none of it is you. Now, why do the meditation people emphasize that? Because the objective is to disidentify yourself with it. It's got nothing to do with you. We identify with it, and that's how we get the story. So when you become aware of your inner dialogue, do your best to simply just say, just become curious and just look at it. When you just look at it, you'll find that it'll have the tendency to vanish. And then another one will come and it'll vanish. Now, when I started to be able to see my inner dialogue, when the divine started to lift me up enough to see that, my inner dialogue was very ugly and angry and violent. It just was unbelievable. But the funny thing is, it's all the past. It's completely the past. Mind is the past coming through and moving into the future, comes into the present and go. That's all it's doing. But it's old. All old. when they when the dialogue stops or becomes still, you are suddenly fully alive, and the filters are gone. See, for us, the filters, we don't experience that. When you look at a tree, immediately the mind interjects and says, that's an oak tree, that's an apple tree, that's a big tree, that's a little tree, that's a nice tree. The mind, we never even experience anything. That's why couples break apart so fast, because after they know each other for a very short time, they don't see the person, they see the memory, they see an image, and they're relating to an image. They're not present. So consciousness is the most important thing of all things, and trying to acquire a higher consciousness. When I do my work with depth healing, I'm raising their consciousness all the time, all the time. What I do with depth healing is I go in and remove the negative causes, whether it's disease, pain, money problems, broken heart, whatever it is. I go into the subcon, I find the original downloads, I remove them all to zero relative to that question. When I do that, their brain is reorganizing, all their database is reorganizing, and that changes their perception, which changes their frequency, which either quickly or over time, depending on what we're working on, it will be reflected in their outer existence. That's how why now I'm a wealthy man, and I for 30 years I couldn't make a dime. Didn't matter all my titles and all the stuff I knew. The reason for that was cognitive dissonance. And I didn't, until I met Dr. Habersky, I didn't know what cognitive dissonance was. It's the fundamental human problem, cognitive dissonance. That just means the subconscious mind has got a program that says you have to go to the left. And your conscious brain with 6 PhD says, oh no, I got this all figured out. I want to go to the right. So you'll start and you won't make it. Because there's a ratio. Subconscious mind is 1 million times stronger, minimum. 1 million times stronger than the conscious idea. A 1 to 1 million. So the conscious mind will never win, ever, if there's cognitive dissonance. So the trick is to remove the cognitive dissonance, and then the subconscious will endorse what you want to do here, and everything works.
So it sounds like becoming more conscious is really a process of digging into your subconscious and
Yep.
and I don't want to say embracing that more, but slowly getting to the point where your subconscious you're fully utilizing and in coherence with your subconscious.
Yeah. See, like how old are you now?
39.
Okay, so 39 years of living, and as you are going through your life, like let's say tomorrow you're going to meet some new lady or another a different man, business. All of the things you encounter, the people or things, it's a way of I'll use a keyboard. If you think of a keyboard like a piano, and it's about 2-3 miles long with all kinds of keys on it, and that's you. That's your subconscious database. And then as you're living, there's keys getting played. And then that note that is an experience, a feeling, a thought, something, it'll activate it. It's all in the subconscious. And life is playing it. And as it plays it, you have a chance to see it and either heal it, change it, experience it. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep.
So when my clients are coming to see me and they'll say, I've been doing this new practice for a few years, and then I started doing a business with it, and I feel blocked for some reason. I can't get past something. So I go into the subconscious and we find out where or what happened that gives them the download, the perception that they can't go past that. Let's say a financial glass ceiling. They can't get past that. Where does that originally start? And I go back through their consciousness like David Hawkins, and I find out that it's in their third program. So third program is from conception until the first 6 hours after they're born. And I go through and I find out that in the first trimester, they got the first original download was brought into their consciousness. It's about a 3 out of 10, not too strong, but it starts. Then when I erase it, then I go up. When's the next one? And I go through all the pillars that built one on the other that gives them this glass ceiling that it's in subconscious. They're not conscious of it. Now they're your age, plowing through to build a new business, and they're blocked. So I remove the pillars. Then I come up to the actual age they are now, and I say, is there still a program active in your consciousness supporting the existence of this glass ceiling? And if I get a yes, we disassemble it and erase it. And glass ceiling is gone, and away they go. But it's the issue, their consciousness. So when I remove the glass ceiling, means their consciousness is up higher because the limiting perceptions are gone. So it's incrementally raising consciousness, raising consciousness.
It's like a
Makes sense.
it's like a speed limiter on a car, if you will. That's not exactly what it's called, but anyway, let's say it's limited at 80 miles an hour. You take the limiter off, now it can go to 90 or 100 or whatever that is.
That's right. That's right.
So the simplest thing, another quote that I think about a lot, and I've said it too many times on this podcast and probably drives most of these people crazy, is unless you make the unconscious conscious, it'll dictate your life and you will call it fate, comes from Carl Jung.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
that's true.
another good one.
Yep,
So
that is very true.
what is a simple strategy that we can use to even to start to become aware of our inner dialogue? Because I don't think a lot of people, maybe they're aware of it and that it, like I said, I think we just believe that our inner dialogue is just us. That's just the way that it is. We can't really do a whole lot about it. So how do you even start to become aware of it and then change the belief that you can do something with it?
Oh, okay, well, so there's a couple of things there. To become aware of the inner dialogue, that's what all the meditation methods are. The reason for meditation, if you think about what a meditation is, they limit sensory input. So like if you close your eyes and then you limit movement. So you're sitting still. And the whole purpose for that is to try to be able to be quiet and still enough so that you can perceive. They use their breath because breath is the one constant. And then when the thought, but the problem with that kind of meditation, you can do it for 60 years and go nowhere. So one of the ways to try to see your inner dialogue is you look at your surround, the people in your life, your house, the room, your everything around you, because your outer world is directly created from your inner world, and the inner world is that inner dialogue. So one way to try to find yourself, what's going on, is by looking. If everything is a homunculus and it's a big mess, that's you. If everyone is when they're, let's say, they're not nice, they're angry, they're arrogant, they're mean, that's actually us being reflected back. So that's one way. Then if you have some kind of a practice, or you see someone like me, consciousness will rise. You get some kind of a nice practice. And now I'm a world-class martial artist, so I train over 50,000 hours just in Aikido alone. And I never was aware of my inner dialogue in all of that. And I'm a swordsman, and I train for lethal engagement of mass with tactical firearms and swords and everything. And so I got a fairly high concentration ability, still was not aware of inner dialogue, because we identify with it. So one thing I would try to say is it's very hard. It's actually very hard to see your inner dialogue. You basically, if you look for it, like do you know what the reticular activating center is in your brain? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So so you'll start to see what you're looking for. So if you try to look to see what thought, what is the thought, what thought is moving through my head, you can try to do it that way. My process, the reason I'm able to see my subconscious, and then my dialogue was changed, was through the divine. So I'm a bhakta, which means my way is through like worship and the divine, which takes care of everything for me. There's two ways to use spiritual life. The Buddhist way is the way of effort. So that means you do your meditations, and you do your all of your various practices and disciplines to move you forward. And I did that for 46 years of Japanese sword, and I'm a Heiho man. But I'm a combination. So the other side of me is I do mantra, and mantra is like a prayer, and I talk to the divine, and I bond with the divine, and the divine blesses me and elevates me. So there's the two ways. So my way is the mystic's way, and the divine elevates. So what they've done for me in the last just couple of years, all of a sudden I could see my inner dialogue and how ugly it was. And I asked them, please transform it, because it's I don't want to I don't want those thoughts anymore. And it's gone. One day it's gone. And I grow like that. Now I'm asking for my inner dialogue to stop, because I want the enlightenment. The divine does that for me. Now, whichever way you go, if you become aware of your inner dialogue and you can see it, don't try to do anything with it. We call it the what is. Whatever it is, just look at it and say, I recognize you. I see that. And it'll just disappear like a bubble. And then it'll come back. You just, again, just look at it. That's what, it's the same process like Vipassana meditation. It's exactly the same. But you don't try to do something with it. Just let it, as your consciousness looks at it, it'll start to change. It'll start to slow down. It'll happen less. It starts to transform. You try to manipulate it, it's a mistake. You won't be able to. You just come up again, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to use a story to stop a story. You're trying to use a voice to stop a voice. All you got to do is look, because it's not yours. It's not yours. You just have to know those things are just going to come and go, come and go. Once they stop, that's why Eckhart told you, if you listen to him, he'll always say, try to become aware of the space between the stillness between the words, or between the set, because that's where life is. And the stream is just a stream. It's been there for millions and millions and millions of years. And then, am I making any sense? You
Yes.
ask good questions. It's
Well,
not an easy thing to adjust.
I'm glad that the question is useful enough to pull something out. But no, it does. The way that I think of you were talking about the reticular activation system to kind of help you be able to grab your attention to your inner dialogue. The way that I usually explain it is, if you go and buy a new car, and you buy a car because you think that no one else has the car, suddenly you buy the car and the next day everyone else has the car. It's not because everyone else went and bought the car the next day. It's because all the cars were there in the first place. The car just wasn't important to you yet. Now that you have the car is important to you. Now you notice it everywhere.
That's right.
So what you're saying is use that same system to find your thoughts. Tell yourself that it's important to find your thoughts, and then it'll help you be able to search for them.
Yeah, for instance, that's why they use monasteries. What is a monastery? A monastery is a very austere place that removes. I'm running out of time. What time? How much? What time is it?
With 55, well, I guess it would be 6:55 your time or 7:55 your time.
Yeah, on the hour, I've got a client.
Oh,
Are we scheduled for an hour, or what are we scheduled for?
when you finish your thought and we'll jump off.
Okay, so the monastery serves a purpose of eliminating all kinds of sensory input, and then you're not allowed to talk. You only get one meal a day, whatever their rules are, and that sort of like force feeds you to encounter yourself and your mind and all the rest of it. See, now the problem with monasteries is why it's fundamentally worthless, especially nowadays. People will go to a 2 week or a 1 month retreat, and then the meditation is not removing the negative programs. make them conscious, but it won't eliminate them. I eliminate them with frequencies. It's different. What happens is they leave the monastery and instantly the environmental triggers just fire everything back up. You have to remove the triggers. See, my triggers, I always had a severe temper, but I go out, I can go out and almost all of the things that would used to anger me, like on driving and things, nothing, nothing. The trigger's gone. That's when you know consciousness is really elevating. You know that. But monasteries, what happens in something like that, it's you break the normal story and the routine, and that helps you to see that dialogue's just running. You know,
That
like
makes
you
sense.
can be taking a bath. This happened to me in my 20s. I was taking a shower, and all of a sudden I became aware of the fact that I was having a conversation with a couple of guys that weren't there, that happened years ago. And I thought to myself, why am I talking to them? Or where? Who's? And that was way back in my 20s. And then of course you just get lost in the story, and 20, 30 years can go by, and then you get another glimmer. Depends on the person. So my growth now is, you have to understand, my bond with Shriyama Bhagavan and the great compassionate light, that is transforming me, and I'm an instrument for that divine to my clients. Like this person I'm going to see here in a couple minutes, that's what I'll be doing. They present me with their problems. I go in, find out why it's there, and I remove it, and that'll lift their consciousness up, change their life, etc., etc.
Dr. G, I appreciate you so much. We got a whole boatload of things to work on now, I think. So,
Okay, thank you
very
very
helpful.
much.
I appreciate it so much. Where's the easiest place for people to find you?
Just go to my website, depthhealing.org. Depth healing is one word.org. And don't miss my full moon ceremonies. They're free. They're morphic field physics, enormously powerful, and they are designed. The divine. I'm able to. I have the authority to plug you, my group, whoever shows up, to receive divine grace directly. So you come with your prayers. You just go to my website. There's no registration or nothing. You just click on the link and you attend, and then you will receive grace. And that's one of my services, and it's very, very powerful because it's morphic field physics. It's a collectives.
Well, we could all use a little grace, Dr. G.
Yes, that's for sure. Especially now.
No doubt,
Especially
brother.
now.
Thanks so much. I
Thank you
appreciate
very
you.
much. Ditto, ditto. Thank you very, very much. You take good care of yourself.
Thanks, Dr. G. You do the same.